Good morning, everybody. Cowboy here. We have V the Guerrilla joining us shortly. Today we have Kelleran's Corner, Ben Kelleran, who we got your links down in the description. So if you want to find Ben's work, go to the description. Go ahead and click on there. I believe it's the Substack we have there for you. Also, you do great work on X, and really love all the work that you do on the energy markets, commodity markets as a whole. Also, while you're in that description, go ahead and take a look at the free Algo. I actually built it. I made a video of me building it. That way you can see how these trading algos are made, see how the sausage is made, and if you really know what you're doing, you can actually optimize it and trade with it and maybe get a result or not. Can't say which way that's going to go. Either way, visit that, do all the things. Ben, how you doing, sir?
Doing pretty good. Thanks for having me on.
Well, that's our pleasure. It's good to have you on. It's Tuesday, Kelleran's Corner. It's your show. You and I were talking about a couple things there before the show started. One of them being cattle futures, which is kind of a side door into the real conversation. But I'm looking at cattle futures. They're lexicographic almost. I mean, the demand. Are you personally pushing that demand up with your carnivore diet?
I mean, there is a stat. I think that there's 12% of the U.S. population that eats half the beef. So I'm at least I think part of that 12%. But I think I think the thing that's interesting, and we can kind of get into it some more with eating like just meat, is most doctors, most people will think you've gone insane, right? But it's always like people will try it, and as long as you're doing it halfway decently and getting kind of the right mix of fat and protein, it like you feel like really good doing it. So it's one of those things where you don't miss what you get from the seed oils and carbs and all the bread, all the different things, where you kind of look at, like, just go to a grocery store and look at the ingredients on some of the stuff, and it's just a lot easier to avoid some of the like minefields with like dietary habits if you're just eating meat. So yeah.
Yeah, you know what? I like to eat things that I cannot pronounce, like ingredients like ristrozestromycin, and that's got to be good for you, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. When the two major food groups are meat and eggs, at least that's the way it's been for last couple of weeks. You'll start to notice, like, hey, this is it's not actually as expensive as people will like bitch and moan about. And you don't snack, you don't get hungry. You can basically eat until you're full, and it's definitely something worth experimenting. And I think people, if they're like struggling with weight or struggling with energy, I think that'd be like a big change for a lot of people that I think is worth kind of looking at. And I just it's one of those things where it's not some scientific study; it's all anecdotal evidence. But if you kind of look at it as a study of one, it's like, okay, basically started eating meat and eggs exclusively, and this is not like starvation diet type stuff. It's not like, oh, I've been eating half a pound of ground beef and that's all I eat for a day. It's like, no, it'll be half pound of ground beef, 8 eggs is one meal, and then like a ribeye that's probably a pound and a half is the other meal. And that's like kind of what I go for, is 2 meals a day. And basically still am down like 10 pounds over the last 2 weeks. And it's not like I needed to lose 50, probably shooting for another 10, give or take. But it's one of those things where if you're kind of stuck in a rut or feeling like you can make some changes, it's just one of those things where it's not that difficult to try for a couple weeks or a month or whatever it is, and you'll start to notice like the differences right away. So
Yeah, I'm close to a nutritionist. I hook up with her. It's my wife, by the way. And one thing that we've talked about these kind of things. I'd imagine if you're eating all meat, you're going into ketosis, and that will probably cause you to lose weight. I understand though that ketosis is not always like it's not necessarily a long-term solution. There are nutrients that there are measures of health that go beyond how much you weigh. So I know that a lot of the things like the phytonutrients that vegetables provide are apparently important for our organs and stuff like that. So I'm always into like doing the unexpected, which is I would love to go full carnivore. Um, in many ways, sometimes I do actually. I just naturally do that. Like I'll have grilled way too much food on purpose, and the next few days I just eat meat because I don't care to take the time to make a salad. Um, but all in all, I think there's a lot about diet that people don't know, but I think what we do know is that refined sugar and processed grains is just not good for us.
Yeah,
Um,
I think the biggest thing you're getting at there too is like the automatic elimination where it cuts out all these things that are very inflammatory. And I understand the point where there are some things that meat does not have as far as nutrients and all that. But if you kind of go down the list of what is in some of these different cuts of meat and different things, it is actually very important to make sure you're getting like fatty cuts of meat, whether it's ribeye or other stuff like that, um, or ground beef that is not just the leanest you can find. But I think the thing that's interesting is if you talk to people that have been on a carnivore diet for like years at a time, they don't seem to have any issues. I've kind of experimented with it a little bit in the past, and it's it's something where I didn't do it for more than a couple months last time. So we'll see how long this one lasts. But um, I'm not saying it's a permanent solution, but I think the whole carnivore diet thing is for people that are interested in kind of health, fitness, overall wellness is definitely something that's worth kind of taking a look at and maybe experimenting with.
yeah, V, who is here by the
Yo,
way. V, how you doing, sir?
good. You guys are talking about diets.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we jumped into it. V,
Okay.
you actually are you have a degree in clinical nutrition, don't you?
Yes, I do. I do.
What do you think of that whole carnivore diet thing? Do you think that that's a good thing, short term, long term?
Um, I think I think it's a great thing. I think look, in the short term. I think there are people that have done it successively, eating clean meats, not meats that are overly processed or whatnot, and meat only. It oftentimes because of let me take a step back and set up this whole entire thing. Oftentimes, because of the environment that we live in, because of the toxins and chemicals that are in modern agriculture and foods that are non-organic and whatnot, we develop, a lot of people develop all sorts of issues, whether it's hormonal, biochemical, immunosuppressive, whatever the heck it is, right? And then when you do some sort of an elimination diet, whether it's carnivore, keto, or even short, very extremely short-term veganism, I don't recommend veganism long-term. You're not a vegan. No way humanity is made to run on plants. Sorry. um, in terms of carnivore, yeah, I think carnivore diet is great, but I don't believe in the total elimination of plants. There are certain fruits and vegetables that are absolutely beneficial, especially on the fruit side of things, to not only the carnivore diet, but also to help better with insulin response and mitigating a lot of the issues that we have with insulin sensitivity within the American population. I think it was Dr. Paul Saladino who was hardcore carnivore for a number of years, and he's developed some few issues, and he was able to remedy some of the issues that that has occurred with carnivore by incorporating some fruits into his diet, some wild honey, things of that sort. You got to eat, like, if you look at how our ancestors ate and the way their blood work was great and the way their teeth were fantastic, the bones, their skeletal, the skeletal muscular structure and whatnot, they were, I'd say, 80% meat, 20% plants, and there are certain, like I said, there are certain plants that are beneficial that don't have the oxalates and or the some sort of it doesn't increase the levels of hormosis, which is basically the ability of the body to break down the natural plant toxins, because some plants are toxic, and people eat them, and in long term it's not good. So 80-20, I think, is a good rule. Just eat clean. That's what I recommend. Eat clean. They're and I think genetics and blood types, and also that also plays a role in it as well. Case in point, there are vast swaths of the population that cannot handle dairy, but there's also certain ethnic groups that can. So forth goes with certain grains and whatnot as well. So I would just in the United States just eat as clean as possible. 80-20 rule. 80% clean meats. You want to get it as organic as possible, and some good quality fruits, some really good quality veggies. That's what I would do.
Well, Kelleran, that's an Irish name, so you should just be eating potatoes all day, right?
Yeah, that and
Fish.
I do miss the dairy, but they when I probably go back to something that's a little bit less restrictive, I'm sure I'll add in yogurt and raw milk. Honey is like, if I have a sweet craving, there's some good spots to get honey around here in Idaho. But my guilty pleasure is the Honeycrisp apples. If you get them from Washington, that's like bar none, like the best apple out there. And
Dude, my apple tree just yielded, and I've got a lot. I'll have boxes of apples. They're Macintosh, I believe, and I like a Macintosh. They're tarts, really good apples. And you're, I don't know, not 30 minutes for me, so maybe I'll get you a bag of them. And I got some interesting comments here. Velas, unacceptable, sir, for being late. Just kidding. We're just happy to have you. We got Jim Dillinger saying he's a vegan and he isn't dead. Sure. Well, a lot of people are vegans. A lot of people are not dead. Everybody will die at one point. The question is, what's your quality of life? Another story altogether. And the same goes for, anybody that says, well, I've been doing this and I'm not dead. Well, shit, man. I know a lot.
Well, the human body is extremely resilient. The human body, when you look at like people that are drug addicts, right? The amount of damage the body takes and still be functional on the day-to-day level is incredible. The human body is extremely, what's the word I'm looking for? Resilient. Yes, extremely resilient. And
yeah, I mean, I'd look at. One of the studies they did on veganism was pregnant women and the health of the baby once the baby is born, the health of the fetus, the look of the placenta in particular was something that was extremely concerning. We'll just leave it at that. You want to be a vegan, go be a vegan. It's a fucking free country. But I eat a fair amount of meat, and out here, what I do is there is a farm. They sell their meat to the co-op, and that's how I met this couple. It's a husband and wife who run it, and the husband is a soils expert, so he actually grows the feed. So they grow. I know exactly how the feed is grown. I know that it's organic, and then the cattle they've had the same cattle for generations. So it's not like, because I know some people who sell good tasting meat around here that I used to buy from. So I buy a cow or a half a cow at a time. And what they'll do is they will get the cow as a calf at auction. So they have no idea what the first 6 months of its life was, what it was fed. And then they're not always feeding them the best stuff either. And they'll give them the antibiotics and they'll this and that and the other. Well, this couple doesn't do any of that. Right. So, the cow, how it was treated, how the prior generations were treated, how the feed's grown. They're not the cheapest meat, but if you buy a half a cow or a whole cow, it's well within line. That's for sure. And it is good. Damn, it's good meat. So I'll be happy to give you a recommendation, Ben. They'll sell you, you don't have to buy a whole cow or half a cow. Next time we take a delivery, you can just be a part of that. We'll split it if you want.
Yeah, definitely. The I found at the co-op was actually a bison farm, so I ordered like an eighth of that, and it was, I don't know, $400-$500, like $550 after tax or something. And it's leaner than beef, but it's definitely something where people should try it. Like it's really good. The ground buffalo or ground bison, whatever you want to call it, is really good. So that's kind of the rant on carnivore, all that stuff. I think it's just one of those things where I was thinking about it, and I think people like, we can talk about financial markets and current events and all this other stuff, but it's something where, right, if you're eating every day, it's a lot closer to home. It actually has all the things that go into it. And I think like, it's easy to get focused on what's going on around the world, but I think there's things that are maybe closer to home that can actually have a bigger impact sometimes. So figured I would throw that out there, and we can maybe shift to any of the other stuff you guys see going on in markets, current events. We had the what's her name, the Fed president diversity hire that Trump's trying to fire now. I don't know if you guys saw that headline, but
That's hilarious.
What's her name? Lisa Cook or
Cook.
something?
Cook. Yeah.
More like kook.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think it is interesting to see where, like, oh, there's mortgage fraud, there's this, there's that. There's a Jim Bianco was tweeting about this. I'll see if I can't pull it up really quick. But if the Fed doesn't get rid of her, then there's like this whole lawsuit process where if they let her stay on and it turns out like they can actually fire her for cause, that can turn into Trump going after Powell for cause. So basically, here we go. I'll share screen here so people can see what I'm talking about. The thing that's interesting is if you kind of go down this path of, okay, what's happening with the Fed, what's happening with interest rates.
Zoom in a little bit on that, Ben. Zoom in on your browser.
If you kind of look at where we're headed with all these different things, and kind of assume, hey, like rates are going to go lower. What does that mean for inflation? What does that mean for all these different things that are going on? I just look at what they're setting up is going to be mediocre to slow growth. And I think, like, right, anyone that looks at CPI as inflation is like out of their mind. But point is, I think all the other forms of inflation that are monitored are going to start to pick up. And whenever oil prices start to catch a bid, right, that's when things really get going. So kind of talked about that a little bit with Luke Groman on the podcast yesterday, and we got into AI, artificial intelligence, and like the spending boom there. I think there's just so many things going on right now in financial markets where it's just, I look at it and it's like a slow motion train wreck waiting to happen, where you have certain things on overdrive, other things are way underinvested in, and we have a federal government that is 7% deficits without a recession. So that's going to 15 if the stock market goes down, tax receipts go down, spending goes up, right? All these different things. I think it basically is a situation where all roads lead to inflation, and something that looks more like it did in 2021, 2022 than the last couple of years. So I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on where this train is headed, if there's any stops or any way to work our way out of it. But it's something where I look at it and you can see the writing on the wall. It probably takes, I don't know, another 6, maybe 12 months to really get moving. But I just look at the setup for the next year is like, it's going to get messy for people thinking they can own just broad S&P and like collect their S&P welfare of 15 or 20% a year.
Well, I mean, that may or may not be the case. I think to be asleep at the wheel and blindly do that is probably a bad idea. I think we're at the inflection point or we're getting closer to it. And so, I think people who are willing to just hand their money over to whoever so you can be the institutional player's exit liquidity. That's not a very good plan, but that's what everybody does anyway. So, at the same time, oh man, I need to shy away from giving investment advice here, but what happens with things like oil and major commodities as they catch a bid, and I imagine they will, because if you look back through history, no type of energy has been taken off of the game, right? We still even use peat in certain places. They just put the new energies on top of the old energies because we need energy so badly. So I doubt that, I don't care how many nuclear plants they put up, the oil is going to probably continue to get used at an increasing rate. So I'm with you on the bid catching. It does sometimes happen, like it sometimes takes longer than we think as people who are predicting markets. We think this is going to happen, that's going to happen. Tom Luongo does talk about oil and how manipulated it is. I mean, Brent crude is not even a deliverable contract, and Brent crude is the benchmark, right? It's just a financial joke. Futures, and he said this. I'm just repeating what Tom said recently, and I've done a whole video on it even before I heard him say it. Futures market is there to fix inefficiencies between producers and consumers. That way, you have a more steady price on all of the goods that come out of the ground, right?
That's in theory designed to match like future time and price and delivery, an actual physical moving of a commodity or a product, right?
Pretty much. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. That's why it was invented in Japan with rice. So that being the case, though, it's turned into something else. And I think that among the things that'll happen, and I don't know which order, I don't know the order in which they will happen, but there will be a clearing of the leverage from the market, which for those of you who might be new, to the game, all of the borrowing of money to push up the markets, that's going to have to severely decrease. The derivatives market is something that is, I mean, no one knows how big it is. A few quadrillion, like no one knows. Some say 4 quadrillion. I know V the Guerrilla has some thoughts on that. The reality is that that's all fake and GAY. So is oil going to catch a bid because of that market, or is oil going to have to catch a bid because that market goes away? There's a lot of there's just a lot of moving parts, but I think in the end, what's going to matter is the usage of oil, right? Simple as that. And I think that the West, the US in particular, does have an evolution with which it needs to come to grips. And I think we're going to have to shake off some parasites, basically Europe, and they're the colonial powers that are now obsolete. And once we shake them off and their idiotic policies, we'll be able to move forward with development. And that's why Trump wants to cut the interest rates so that, there could be this expansion of different kinds of work and so on and so forth. And sure, maybe that'll work, maybe it won't. But I think that regardless of any of those programs, I think we're going to feel some pain before we see like any real results of that. And the question I have is whether or not oil is going to go up before, during, or after that, because really no one knows. I mean, we talk about this. V, you mentioned it just, I think 2 days ago. 2030 is what everybody's kind of looking at for, when things might go sideways.
Yeah, there's a convergence point that's definitely coming up, man. Yeah.
I'll share my screen here, and you're talking about derivatives and what's going on with all that. When you have a market where you have more ETFs than individual stocks, right? That's probably something that's not going to last, right? And there's reasons that businesses don't go public and don't do some of these things, IPO, that maybe they did 20 or 30 years ago because it's expensive to be a public company. But when you have all these ETFs, you're basically just layering on top of what's actually there. Where I understand people like say, oh, the stock market's fake, or some of these different things. But at the end of the day, you own shares of a company. When you own ETFs, and like there's so many ETFs that are toxic junk. There's some that are like, they'll be just fine, right? If you own a like physical gold ETF, I think that's going to be fine. And it's easier to have like liquid access to like gold price versus owning the physical and having to store in a vault if you own a shitload of it. So like, I understand like why people own the Sprott ETFs and like a physical platinum ETF. When you get into, oh, this is the 3 times levered MicroStrategy, whatever, like it just turns into like the casino mentality. And I think eventually the markets go back to a place where capital is actually allocated based on fundamentals, like what a business does, what cash flows are, what assets they have, all these different things. Until then, I think it's just one of those things where people are going to try and kick the can, because a lot of people have made a shitload of money in the current system. And that's something that I'm sure you've seen up close, V, where you see all these different distortions, and it's amazing to watch, but you kind of always go back to Exxon and comparing it to other companies as like, what are these companies actually worth?
Yeah,
and what do they what do they do? What do they do for the world? Right.
Well, Monday's whole show that V pretty much did was all about market distortions.
Yeah. No, I was listening.
Exxon, Meta's worth $300 billion because it has a messaging app.
Yeah,
like
because they can
advertise.
Like it all this stuff is built on, like, let's see, Facebook or Meta's market cap is now approaching basically 1.9 trillion, right?
So
and
stupid.
It's just when you have stuff like that going on, like even if you're like a mega cap like value investor, like Berkshire at 1 trillion, right? Hey, they own an entire railroad. They own massive insurance companies. They also are sitting on a giant mountain of cash and other businesses in there that everyone's probably familiar with, right? That makes way more sense to me that Berkshire is $1 trillion company than like a social media app, right? Because they own real assets.
Yeah.
You know? And when you have something where, let's pull up Exxon so I can take a look. Exxon's not even 500 billion market cap. It's 470. When you have something where Meta is valued like 4 times higher as far as market cap,
yeah,
right? There's something off there. There's something where energy is now what 2 or 3% of the S&P. It's like getting near the same spot where it was when it bottomed in 2020. Like all these different things, I just look at it and it's like people will talk about AI in the future and all these different data mining topics, and it's just not going to be sustainable.
Nonsense, bro. It's like, this is like, I'm so reminded of the .com bubble burst from the early aughts, right, in 2000, 2001, where I'm asking guys, hey, man, why is mothernature.com worth so much money? You just don't understand, V. Mothernature.com is the future of e-commerce and for natural holistic supplementation. There's a reason why V is worth $200 billion. Like, and then, of course, it goes, they all disappeared. And it's the same bullshit around crypto. It's the same bullshit around AI and data center. It's just, look, let's be honest. The reason why the most can't even talk without even keeping a straight face. The only reason why you got these cockamamie ideas, okay, when it comes to data centers, some of the most expensive, inefficient outlays as possible, is because it only does one thing. Is when a company that's in the quote-unquote data mining and the data and the AI space, right, is talking about building out a data center and doing it in the most exorbitant way possible. What it does, it just creates a fervor for its own stock. It's a way of raising its stock price. That's all it is. You tell narratives and stories, and you do what I mean. We laugh at like government projects that are bridges to nowhere, right? But look at these corporate projects in the last 20 years. In the last 10 years, in the last 5 years, that are just boondoggles. They really don't do nothing, right?
I got one for you.
Yeah.
By the way, V, check your mic. I think your settings are on the wrong microphone.
Oh, okay.
So the following came from Hal Turner, and of course, I haven't verified it, and it's Hal Turner. But what he says here, and I'm just going to read it here. What happens to many people to be a BlackRock, or what appears to many people to be a BlackRock and private equity firm housing scam is exposed. Now, this is something that V and Vels and I were talking about in the background, and I gave my view on it, and this isn't too far from what I was thinking. It says that they are buying up entire new housing developments, sometimes 500 houses of new construction at a time. They'll buy the houses at $300K per home. They won't sell them right away, keep the area looking like a construction zone for a year. That microphone's way better. Let's say there are, you sound like you're in the bathroom there earlier.
Sorry about that.
No worries. Let's say there are 3 different model homes in the community that they bought. Then a year later, they'll sell all 3 of those houses that they bought for $300K. They'll sell it to themselves in another fund they manage for $700K. This creates 3 sales comps in the neighborhood. They do one of each of the house models, and now the entire neighborhood, each house is valued at 700,000. This is not too far from my theory that I proposed to you guys in the background, by the way. It says then that what they do is they turn them into obscene rentals, and simultaneously they're going to have a 2.5x value on that portfolio to borrow against. Every American in that community was just priced out of everything around that community. And for whoever sent that to me, thank you. You know who you are. So just another, they're not sure they're producing homes, but most of what they're producing is overvalued homes. And on the back end, they're borrowing against their home value, which is something we've been talking about for a very long time. So they're borrowing against inflated value. They're creating money that never existed in the first place and shouldn't exist at all. And they're keeping Americans from being able to buy homes. This type of distortion, and that is the definition of the distortion. These are homes that should be worth 300,000 each that people should be able to go in and speculate on. And what they do is they go in and they lock down that market. So the actual real true demand based on people's income that they worked for at the wage that they are paid, which is really where everything should be priced based upon in the first place, they are now unable to have any participation in that market. And then all this fake money comes in, and that fake money is doubled via loans. So now you have 4 times the amount of capital moving around. And guess what happens when that falls apart? Let's just say that was done across the nation to all homes, then all homes would collapse to 25% of their prior value. That, of course, is a 1-to-1, and things are not that simple. Quite frankly, I think it might be worse than that. But what do you guys think of all that mess?
I think it's basically the real estate equivalent of like painting the tape, like messing with financial markets. But I think the music might actually be starting to come to a halt on real estate. Some of these different things that I've seen, just people that I like to listen to, they basically have started to sound the alarm on stuff that I talked about with the generational transfer. I think it's 10,000 boomers pass every day, and I think basically 2/3 of those will they'll either sell their house to move to assisted living, or their kids, when they inherit, will sell the house for a variety of reasons. But I think when you have real estate values where they are now, and it's viewed as a financial investment and not a place to live, it kind of turns into what you see with the kind of financial nihilism, as people have called it, that leaks into other parts of society, where it's, oh, if I'm never going to own a home, why should I even bother? Why should I even bother saving? I'll just go out and get a 18% car loan on a Dodge Challenger, Hellcat, whatever it is. But you kind of go down.
Go get that Hellcat. Oh yeah.
You go down the rabbit hole of what it kind of does to society to basically make the food and shelter like aspect of living and living costs just ridiculously expensive. You kind of see some of these things happen that we've started to see accelerate since 2020.
Yeah, for sure. It's like literally this like goes into the show that we did yesterday. Did they really tighten things up after 2008? Sure, they did for a little while. You couldn't do the liar loans. Like, I remember I was close to people in real estate loans back in 2005, 6. And you had guys that had no business opening up these companies and making a boatload of money because they could find people to say that they had XYZ income, stated income loans, right? And it's just liar loans. Oh, I rent a house, but then I have, it's a 3-bedroom house, and all 3 of those bedrooms are rented for $1,000 a piece, and I'm sleeping on the couch. Like, and that's how people were saying that they're boosting their income by $3,000 a month, right? It's that kind of thing going on. And they did away with like the most extreme cases of that. But now you have the student loan bubble. Now you have the car loan bubble, the 18% Hellcats. They got people taking loans out for like 12 years, I heard. Is that true? Do they have 12-year term loans on cars?
I think 7 is the most common, like longer term one. Right. And those 7-year loans are not like 3% anymore. Like they might have been like several years ago. They're pushing, like, if you get a good one, you're looking 8%. I don't know. Like, It's just silly to take out 8% debt on an asset that is depreciating.
I saw a video where they took out it was a 12-year loan on a GMC 2500 pickup truck, and they were paying I think $1,200 a month for like 280 some odd months or something like that. Like it's stupid, right?
400 grand.
Yeah, it exactly came out to $330,000. It was crazy
for a truck.
Yeah,
that truck and that loan are both fucking, excuse me, goy slop.
it's terrible, dude.
Seriously, like that's goy slop. That is what that is. Like, I mean, 84-month loans are becoming pretty popular. That's what's the, that's what basically Ben just said right now. So 7 years to pay off a truck, dude. They had like a thing where this guy took out a student loan for $8,000, paid the $8,000, and has $8,000 left.
Yeah,
I mean, people don't understand what they're getting into with loans, man. They just know that they can pay this amount of their disposable income and have this thing. And I mean, there's a reason why the religions banned usury.
Yeah.
And like I said at the end of the show yesterday, there is one group that continued to do the usury despite those bans, very interestingly. And that group was actually used by other groups and so on. But I don't know, man. It's just, in a way, it's financial Darwinism, and just the weak will go away, but they're not going to go away. They're going to burn buildings. And that's the problem. Like, it makes you wonder if the sort of higher level control that other countries have over such things is not such a bad idea. I think the real answer is education. And we all know where the U.S. stands when it comes to education in first world countries.
Yeah. I think, speaking of burning buildings, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but it seems like the temperature in the UK has been, at least what I've seen on social media, is continuing to heat up with what you see with some of the flags and protests. And I'm sure you guys have seen the little.
Oh yeah, I don't know how.
Image.
I mean, what do you think is going to happen in the UK, man? I don't think these people are going to vote themselves out of that mess that they're in right now.
No, they had some. They had this lady at a video this morning on X where her husband had shown concern that somebody was putting up Palestinian flags, and I may or may not agree with. I don't, so what? You know what I mean? They're basically being killed hundreds at a time in Palestine or Gaza Strip or whatever have you. So I understand why people might want to put a flag up. And then there's people who think that Hamas is terrorist, and maybe they are, and maybe they don't like Palestine flags. I don't care. That's fine. They don't have to like them, but they should have the ability to say, I don't like those Palestinian flags, and not be arrested. And then it's the exact opposite of what happened. They knock on this guy's door. I think it was around midnight, some elderly couple, the wife's got stage 4 cancer, and they arrest him for something he said on social media. And we know this has been going on, but it's amazing to see it. This guy's like a retiree. He's like in his 60s, or maybe he's not even retired. He might be working, and his poor wife is dying, and they're going to take him away because he said he doesn't like something. Like, that's not, I think we should sanction the UK.
I think we should arm the rebels is what we should do. But
yeah,
I mean,
I wouldn't go against that either, but that's what they want, because they're going to lose in Ukraine. And now they're going to turn themselves into civil war. And that's what they tried with us. And it didn't work. We have the Second Amendment here.
Well, it's the joke is that the UK is now Epstein Island for Muslims, right?
Yeah.
It's like you see some of the stuff. There was one that was going semi-viral that I saw this morning where like a 14-year-old girl is like basically running around with an axe and like machete, like big old knife, and then basically warding some of these immigrants off, and then she ends up getting arrested for like these weapons. And It's like, okay, at what point? Yeah, that's the one. And at some point there is I don't know when the point of no return is, but I think you're gonna start to see people say enough is enough. And when you have a government doing right, I'm not saying the US is perfect, but we haven't made it this far down the slippery slope yet, right? Where we're arresting people for saying stuff on social media, or basically people for self-defense, right? So
Yeah, and by the way, someone tried to like fact check it. Sorry, I can't talk this morning. And they were saying like, oh well, no mention in the police report of Muslims, no mention of this and that and the other. Of course, there's no mention. They don't mention it. It's the same thing like in the U.S. when we have all these statistics of who's actually committing the crimes, and because no one wants to talk about who's committing the crimes, and they have these people who are labeled at the police report as being white Caucasian males, and they are not white.
Yeah, it's DeJounte.
Yeah, right.
His ethnicity is white. It's like, okay.
And like, no,
DeJounte.
I'm not trying to throw shade on, anybody in particular, but I mean, hey, it is what it is. Like, why would they not write the truth of the report? Right. So, and it's come to a point where everybody knows it. And it's come to the point where if they try to pull this shit here in America, where our government and our leadership allows this kind of stuff, all I can say, and as I've said before, there are 20,000 to 40,000 lampposts in the average American-sized city. And that's all I have to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where you kind of get into so much stuff with Trump. And there's I was reading an X post from a guy talking about, growth is slowing down. What happens if Trump does a 180 on immigration and starts letting people back in to basically suppress wages and keep GDP, because everyone worships at the altar of GDP. GDP must go up. If you start to see them backtrack on immigration for economic reasons, right, there's long-term impacts of that, but I think you're going to see Trump's popularity tank, right? I think the biggest thing that needs to happen is a washout of all these different distortions. And if you fix the immigration problem where we deport, like, I don't know if you guys saw this, there are now 55 million visa holders for the US, right? So they're not all here at once, but if there's that many people that have student visas and work visas and all these different things, right? Imagine how many people are here illegally, right? We should have anywhere from 80 to 100 million people less in the country, right? Imagine what that does to real estate and that being affordable. Imagine what that does to crime rates. Imagine what that does to car insurance, right? All these insurance costs that have exploded over the last 5 years, right? That's not a fluke, right? All these different things where people have to subsidize different parts of the population that shouldn't even be here in the first place. It's ridiculous, right? And so I don't know where this all shakes out, but if the kind of ruling class wants to continue to have like a democratic republic or a pretend democratic republic, you're going to need to figure out how to basically pump the brakes on some of these different agendas that have been going at breakneck speed over the last, I don't know, basically my entire life, but especially over the last 5 years.
Yeah, it's getting weird. It's getting very weird. And I think that a lot of white collar jobs are going away to AI. I think all I can say is it's getting really weird.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No more adult daycare. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. No more adult daycare. Like, for example, we have the student loan deal. I know we're here at the end of the hour, but the student loan bubble, it's like $2 trillion now, I think. I remember when it was just $1 trillion. And they're giving away hundreds of thousands of dollars to people who want to get like gay art therapy degrees, as you would say. Arctic.
Hey, man, there's nothing wrong with gay art therapy degrees. I've done very well with mine.
My Arctic seal imitation dance courses have really paid off. But here's the thing about it. I mean, let's talk about if you were going to take a loan in the 1970s to buy a house before things got really stupid. They would look at your income and your capability to pay it off. Well, student loans would take a look at what kind of degree you would get, which is hard to do for somebody going in who hasn't declared a major. So they're basically going to like take a look at your parents' ability to pay it off and link your parents to it. Now they're just giving loans to anybody. And now, I mean, don't even get me started on the matriculation and acceptance practices going on at universities. Let's just say the kids with the highest scores aren't the ones that are preferred to get in. So I think all of that's going to fall apart. I think there's going to be a write down on the debt. I think that debt's going to have to get written down. I don't think that there is any other choice but to write down that debt. Right.
The only alternative is if they go after the endowments.
Yeah.
I don't think the endowments can cover $2 trillion, can they?
There's a lot of money floating around that has been growing tax-free for decades.
Well, then, by
So-
God, go after the endowments. Those schools accepted those students. They should accept the consequences, and they should not have that on the backs of the American people.
That's the biggest thing is like, I don't know how they fix the current situation moving forward. If you take and put the universities on the hook for people they admit and not the federal government, you're going to see people only loan for engineering, for medical school, and a couple other things, right? But you're not going to see tuition at 70 or 80 grand a year, right? 30 maybe, right? And you're going to see, I think this is another rant on the immigration stuff, but apparently the Trump admin is thinking about letting in, was it 600,000 new Chinese students? Like how many like different crop viruses do they have to bring into the country for people to wake up and realize like at least 5 or 10% of those are going to be like working directly with the Chinese government, right? You see like the orange blight in Florida that Will Tanner, one of my friends, was talking about on his Substack. You see there's another one up in Michigan where they arrested 2 people from China, like same deal, like different crop, but it's like all these different things where there's so many policies where if you could just say, okay, we want to put America and the people of America first, it would just like make all these different things ridiculous on the face of it. But we don't even make those changes.
The pushback I have is that the people, if there is some kind of infiltration from, people from China and bringing things in, it's not that hard. They smuggle in people through like shipping containers. You don't need to bring them in with an H-1B or for students. The other problem is that if you want to elevate the level of student that you have, our education system is not spitting people out that fit the description. Now the Chinese, on the other hand, their education, prior to university, they're excellent. Their students are kicking everybody else's ass over the top of their head. So, I mean, if you're worried about, diseases and crops, I don't know that
I wouldn't worry about Chinese and
student vector is the issue. I would probably worry that those Chinese people were probably framed by a 3-letter agency half the time.
Yeah. To back up on what Nick is saying, right, real quick, I'm more worried about Bill fucking Gates.
Right.
I'm not worried about viruses. I'm worried about Bill motherfucking Gates. That's who I'm worried about.
We need to clean our own side of the street. We need to clean off our porch before we start worrying about other countries at this point.
And also,
my point with the education thing is just that when, like you said, the education system here in the U.S. is a mess for a variety of reasons, whether it's diversity hires or DEI, right? Affirmative action, like take your pick, right? Go down the list of all these different things that we could fix. If we basically go back to a system where college is designed for people that are smart enough, like have the brain power for it, and not just everyone has to cater to the lowest like common denominator, lowest 20%. Like there's someone talking about this, and if you actually look back in history at what some of these universities used to be, right? It's not that difficult to, or it's not that complicated. It might not be easy. It's not that complicated to get back there. And like, you're definitely right that Bill Gates is a bigger threat than whatever Chinese international students and their like chromed out BMWs bring. But like the thing with all these different agendas is, my point is, we should be focusing on how do we like help the next up and coming generations of Americans instead of how do we offshore jobs? How do we grow GDP? How do we import
we can't
a
do
ton of
any of those
people,
things.
right?
The answer that I gave was on Monday's show, yesterday's show. We can't do any of those things until we end financialization. That's the one thing that has to be killed. We have this. I mean, think about it. We were complaining about the universities and their endowments. Why do they even have endowments, right? Well, it's because of the financialization. It's those the financialization. It creates for them an environment where they can go ahead and gamble, where they can go ahead and quote unquote invest. Like all of this is subjugated by this whole entire, central banking type economy. And so unless we fix that, and unless we bring back a physical economy and the use of credit for the public good, we're going to keep running into these problems because everybody has the incentive to bullshit right now, literally at every level. It's crazy, man.
Yeah. Well, I have nothing against the idea of an endowment on paper, but your focus should probably be, okay, how do we get very talented students in here that couldn't afford it otherwise, and how do we basically focus and make our investments in our graduates, not how do we clip 10% or 15% from private credit or private equity, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think you're talking about a decades long thing. Like when I was a kid, a very long time ago, they actually were giving aptitude tests to the young. I'm sure they still do this, but they didn't focus on what race you were. And then as a student, they would try to get you to take harder classes, and they'd work with the parents. And I took calculus when I was like 14 years old, and was taking college courses when I was still in high school. And now I of course trade imaginary internet money for a living, so I don't know what that got the world, but there were others like me that probably did contribute to the world, right? And so I think that we need to lean back into that model without all of the DEI bullshit, without the Common Core bullshit, without the teaching your kid that they can be a female furry dog dragon monster if that's what they want to be when they grow up. Like, we need to cut out the bullshit. And then those kids who are raised in such a way, they have a chance. But you're talking about a decade or two. The damage has been done with these kids now. You know what I mean? The kids that are coming up now, they're done. It's over. So what do we do until then? That's the real question, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. There's probably some exceptions, and I'd love to find them, and maybe we can figure out a program that puts out the feelers to find the high quality students who, fit the bill. And that's how I would do it if, were I king.
Yeah, I think we'll see what happens. I think there are certain advantages the U.S. has that are not going anywhere anytime soon. But until we kind of get into fixing some of these big problems, whether it's the diet and health of the country, which kind of talked about at the beginning with Carnivore, all that stuff, and kind of experimenting with different kind of approaches to nutrition or markets that are actually built on fundamentals and real estate prices that make sense relative to what people actually make, right? Until we actually deal with some of those problems, like, we're going to keep kicking the can. And that's I'll do like a last minute plug, but for anyone that's interested in some of these other big picture topics on financial markets, on some of these different things, like my podcast with Luke Groman yesterday was, I think, one of the best that I've done. And he's wicked smart on a lot of these different topics, whether it's gold and precious metals, what's going to happen to bonds. Like, we can bitch and moan about real estate and stocks being overvalued, but the most ridiculous asset I think to hold for the next 10 years is going to be long bonds, right? I think you're going to get inflated away. And I think we're headed for higher interest rates over time, right? Short term, they're going to try and cut. Longer term, they're either going to try and inflate away the debt and cap yields, or you let interest rates go, and we're looking at rates that are much, much higher. So that's kind of the big picture wrap up. So
I put the link to the Luke Groman in the chat. So anybody wants to see that, it's in the chat. And then as to long bonds, the Treasury's already started, what do you call it? MMT, what do you call it? Yield curve control. So basically, the Fed isn't doing it, but the Treasury has been doing it, and so that's on the menu as well. And who knows how that's going to play out? That's impossible to know.
Yeah, I don't have a strong 12-month crystal ball, 5 years plus. If you're trying to hold bonds from now until maturity, I mean, good luck actually preserving your purchasing power is the way I'll put it. You'll get your money back. You're probably not going to like what it'll buy at the end of the bond. So
yeah, the inflation is going to outstrip the yield by probably multiples.
Yep.
Well, I guess that wraps it up, V. Unless you have anything else, V, that you wanted to add to all that.
No, that was very good. Ben, thank you for coming on, man. We're looking forward to having you on next week. Folks, keep it locked and loaded right here. Cowboy, take it away.